Okay, welcome back. This entire episode is going to be dedicated to just recapping the marathon, kind of running through our thoughts and what we felt, kind of how we thought things went. Shawn and I were talking, since we talked about kind of the training block in general in previous episodes, I think it'd be best to start around the beginning of the taper. Kind of we had a 2-week taper. I know for me personally on the taper, I did not feel good during any of the runs. I was just trying to trust the process in the taper. Legs never really felt super good, never felt really refreshed. 3 weeks kind of before the marathon, I had been dealing with that shin splint in my left shin. So like my right quad was overcompensating and that was tired a lot of the time. So like the runs never really felt great. I don't know if they were supposed to feel great. And I didn't really know what to expect out of the taper, but I did try to follow the plan as it was written and hope that going into race day, legs were just gonna kind of wake up and feel good.
Yeah, I actually felt pretty good during the taper. I had Achilles tendonitis probably a few weeks before the taper, and that kind of resolved itself. I got an insert into my shoe, which helped, and then I also reduced the mileage for like a week, which I think helped. And then going into the taper, I was, they say tapering is hard because you're used to training hard for so many weeks. So like, I think I felt what I was supposed to feel like, which was just kind of like my legs were still a little bit tired. They were just getting used to a lower mileage. But overall, like my body, I didn't have any aches. I didn't have any pain. It was just more so doing a bunch of runs that like weren't, tempo runs or anything like that. Just kind of getting out there and getting on my feet, which was weird. But that's, I think, what a taper's supposed to be. So overall, like the taper felt decent for me.
Yeah, the taper was weird in a couple ways. You go from, well, Shawn talked about his Achilles tendonitis, and I was dealing with the shin splint. We actually happened to both kind of get our injuries, which I think were just a product of overuse, but overuse injuries around the same time. And it was right after our 70-mile week, I think. And we both ended up kind of with some nagging injuries that we were kind of nursing back to health. So there were some days where wouldn't be able to do all the mileage in the day. And, I tried to look at it as like a whole body of work, right? So you've put in, if you look at it as 1,800 miles in total, which is kind of what the plan had us running, I figured that with coming down to the last 3-ish weeks before the marathon, wasn't going to lose that much fitness if I had to cut a couple runs just because my shin was in a lot of pain and I was overcompensating, causing my right quad to work like a ton harder than the left leg, and I was limping during my running. And I was mainly of the mindset, just try to get through the injury so that it's not affecting you on race day. It's okay to like cut some runs. I don't know if that had any sort of negative effect. From what I know about losing fitness and kind of that sort of topic, I don't think that would have had a negative effect on my fitness. And we spent a long time during the training block training in the heat, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah, I agree. I think you said 1,800 miles for the plan. I don't. Is that right?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
18-week plan?
Yeah.
What does that average out to?
Was it 1,800?
I was like, we weren't doing 100-mile weeks.
Thought it was 1,800.
It's over. Like I think it's over 1,000, but I think 1,800.
1,200?
Yeah, something.
Here's 1,200. I'm sorry.
But yeah, no, I agree. Like all of those miles, you do them, and like at the time when we were, dealing with injuries, you think you're losing a lot of fitness, but in the grand scheme of it all, it was literally like a drop of water in the ocean. And, that was a whole separate battle within itself. And like, the more you look back on the training plan, the more you realize that each week, like you just have to take it 1 week at a time. because every week there was something new. Like, it was an injury, it was a stomach issue, it was something that we were busy doing a drop, and you just take each week at a time. And when you look at it like, oh my God, I have to do 18 weeks of this, and like I have to get through this and complete most of my mileage, only missing a handful of runs, it seems incredibly daunting. But when you break it down, you segment it, it's really doable. And you have to realize that like losing a day or losing 20 miles or 40 miles over the 1200 or whatever it is nothing.
Yeah. I remember before Shawn and I even started the plan, I think it was right around the time where we signed up and we didn't even know if we got into the marathon. We were talking about what plan that we wanted to do, and we both were going to go with Fitzinger again because that's who we used for the half marathon and produced good results, and we were both happy with. But even in the Fitzinger half marathon plan, we started to deal with some overuse injuries. So when we signed up for the marathon, Shawn and I kind of looked at each other and were like, we're just going to have to try to get through the training. I think we both knew that there were going to be runs where we either had to cut them short or add in a rest day or something, but it was going to be a matter of just getting through a majority of the block of training unscathed, which we ended up doing. And I kind of, to our credit, I think the base building that we did before the actual marathon training block was a big contributor to getting our fitness and our legs used to running that kind of mileage, because our plan was 55 to 70 miles per week. So we kind of just oscillated in that range and peaked at 70. But the 70-mile week did put it took a toll on both of us. And I think that came after we had done a drop. So rest and all of that, or was it during the drop? But either way, rest wasn't great, sleep wasn't great, stress was high. But you know what? Like, you're never going to have perfect conditions. We're not professional athletes. We don't do this for a living. So you just kind of, you have to deal with the cards that you're dealt. But the taper kind of, first week went well. Second week, Shawn and I really put a heavy emphasis on our sleep and our nutrition, which, thinking back on it, I mean, I was eating kind of the same thing every day, a couple vegetables, lots of carbs, oatmeal, white rice, tilapia, stuff like that, and just trying to keep it bland because I didn't want to have any stomach issues on race day. I don't know if that contributed to me feeling just utterly tired during that week. Like, I felt just gassed. I didn't know why. I remember one day I looked at Shawn and I was like, I got to go across the street to the market and get some like sugar or something because I feel just completely depleted. I don't know what is going on. Couldn't figure it out. I got some fruit, maybe thought my blood sugar was low because it was a similar feeling. Didn't really do a whole lot. Again, maybe I was just in my head about the whole entire thing, but it didn't give me a whole lot of confidence going into the race.
Yeah. I mean, I did the same thing. Like, the difference between Marcus and I is, like, Marcus usually is good about his sleep, and I like to stay up, like, pretty late, like 12 o'clock, and then I won't get, like, full 8 hours. So prioritizing that was huge because that did make a difference. Like, I was waking up every morning feeling pretty good. I told myself I would at least be in bed before 10 or around 10, which I think I did pretty much every night, maybe like 10:15. And I felt amazing. I cleaned up my diet, just like usually on the weekends I like to get a panini, or like I stopped doing that. Just was getting like white rice and eating like eggs and things that I know don't make my stomach messed up. And I felt really good. You had like a few days where you were feeling pretty like lethargic.
Yeah.
I was in a pretty good spot. I was feeling good. There were other things that I was just worrying about that we'll talk about later. But like, as in terms of like physical, how my body felt, it felt good. Mentally I was a little bit all over the place, but I'm sure anybody is when they're like running their first marathon or any sort of race.
Yeah. I think there's an added layer of subconscious stress that you're probably dealing with just because, it's race week. You think about all the miles you put in, all the time you put in, and like you just want it to go well. And then it gets to a point where you just want it to be there. But regarding the weather, Shawn and I started to monitor the weather, 10 days out?
I think it was more than
Maybe 2 weeks out, 14 days out, kind of when the taper started. And, I had been telling Shawn, like, there's really no point in looking because the weather changes so often. But the report at the time was that it was going to be pretty warm, which I didn't put too much stock in. One, because I know weather reports can be wrong that far out. And two, we had done a good amount of our training in the heat. Now, were those training sessions great? No. Did I blow through a lot of water and fuel on those training runs, like much faster than when it is cooler? Yeah. But then again, I also understand that that's kind of how that works, right? Your body's working hard to cool itself down. So I figured, all right, well, we've trained in it. So if it is this way on race day, one, you can't do anything about it. So you got to show up and do it. And two, like if I spend time worrying about this on top of everything else, it's just going to wear me down even more. So I tried not to think about it much, but it was on Shawn's mind like all the time. And I think probably because you had some rough heat training runs in the heat.
Yeah. I mean, this goes all the way back to like college where I played lacrosse and like Mark's played lacrosse. But like whenever it was hot and humid, I would get so gassed so quickly. And then, I had a few runs in the summer that like I was just it was miserable. Like my body just like shut down. I couldn't finish. I think I failed only one run.
Only one, yeah.
In the summer, but it was like one of those days where it was just hot and humid, and I remember having to like push because it was like one of our longer runs, and so that I had that in the back of my mind. So I was on like 3 or 4 different weather websites comparing the data, looking at the humidity levels, looking at the dew point, looking at all of that stuff, just seeing what are the odds this goes down, really working myself up. But I'm one of those people who like I'd rather know so I can there's nothing I can do, but like I'd just rather know. Whereas my family, my dad and my mom and my Marcus were just like, it's not even worth looking at it, like there's no point.
Yeah, I kept telling him like I'm not looking at the weather report until the Wednesday before the race, because then at least it'll be a little bit more accurate. Ultimately that Wednesday comes.
I think it was just getting worse.
And it kind of it did get worse from when I looked like 14 days before the race. And remember looking and just thinking, whew, man, I mean, we might be pushing record temps. Shawn and I would joke about it. And ultimately just became a thing that I tried to maintain the mindset of you can't control the weather. You can't do anything about it. So you just got to show up and do it. Never did I think about like modifying my time goal. I had always maintained in my head that I was just going to keep my time goal and go for it, because I didn't want there to be any question of like what if, and if I had started out slower, like what it like, and if I had started out slower and I did finish, could I have pushed it a little bit more to go for the 2:45? I don't know. I didn't want that, so I was just always going to go for the 2:45, regardless of the weather. Probably in hindsight, one of the dumbest things I could have done, but you don't really know until you know. And while everybody can tell you to do this, that, and the other, ultimately you have to live with kind of the decisions you make. And so if I had crossed that line on a more conservative time goal pace, I would have just been eating myself away the same that I am now. About what if.
I think it's one of those things where it's like I'll never make that mistake again, but I would always make the mistake if it was my first time. Like it's one of those things where I read and I watched countless videos where people were saying adjust your time goals. That it can really wear on you. But like until I was to go out there and experience what happened, I don't think I would have ever learned. Like, it's very easy to be like, okay, like they're saying adjust it, but like, how hard
How
can it
bad
really
could it
be?
be?
Like, how bad is it? Like, I just really got to push through. 70 isn't too bad. And then the only way to learn is for what happened, and that's to just totally use up all of your energy.
Yes. So race day comes. I guess Friday comes. Shawn and I go and we pick up our bibs, which was a great experience. I guess TCS puts it on. The way they had the Expo Center set up was awesome. It was pretty seamless. They were handling a huge volume of people when Shawn and I were there on Friday. Managed to get our bibs, met some of you all. It was, awesome. Hope everybody raced well. My parents came into town on Saturday because my dad was also racing with us. And we, went back, picked up his bid with him. Overall, great experience. Those are memories that not everybody gets to experience, and something that I'm grateful for getting to experience with my parents.
Yeah, I mean, the expo was amazing. Like, I thought it was so fun, and like the energy and everybody is just so excited, and that's just like, I think half of what marathoning is all about, like the community and getting together and like seeing all of like the people with their families. People come in from all sorts of countries. Their families come in from all around to come support them. Like, the city is just bustling, and it's just good energy. And it really gets you excited because like that's just going to translate to the crowds on when you're actually racing, and even more people are going to be out on race day. So picking up the bib and like getting that little taste of, this is what it is, this is what's going to be like similar on race day, the same energy, was exciting. It was a little overwhelming because there's so many people. You don't really realize how many people there are until, one, you're at the expo, two, you're lining up and see how many people are going to the corrals, and then three, like the crowds on the street. It's insane. I mean, we can get into that later, but yeah, the expo was great. Being with my parents was great. The experience was great.
So race day morning the night before comes. That was pretty seamless. Shawn and I went to bed early. We both kind of knew that we weren't going to get much sleep. You kind of have the nervous excitement that you get when you're like a kid and it's like Christmas Eve and you're waiting and you don't really want to sleep. You just want to go down the stairs and open presents. And so I didn't sleep particularly well, but I didn't expect to sleep well, so I did make sure to sleep well, 2 nights before the race, which I read was kind of important. So I was trying to, just do it the best that I could. Race day morning comes, and we get over to the Corral area, which essentially is like the start line. I think one of my first mistakes was that I didn't do any warm-up jog. We were kind of both concerned with getting to our corral and just, seeing it, knowing where it was, and just making sure that we were in the right spot because we didn't want to miss our corrals. That once we were that close to the corral, there wasn't really anywhere to jog or get a warm-up in. So kind of just been standing around for hours. And, I won't say cold legs because it was warm out, but not ideal way to go into the start of the race.
Yeah, I think that is the one area where having a warmer temperature was probably honestly better because, sitting out there in freezing cold temperatures would have sucked. Like, it would have been terrible. And, some people, depending on when you take the ferry or the bus, can be there for like hours. So, having a little bit warmer temperature, I'm sure was great. But I agree, like, it was just kind of like, next thing you know, you're in your corral, and I kept being like, okay, let's go to like this next spot, and I'm sure there's gonna be like a little room for us to run or like get a good warm up in. No, like I was
getting tighter,
face to face with people, like kind of just like pinned up, and I didn't have anywhere to move. Like I bumped into multiple people, like elbows bumping, you know, by accident, obviously, multiple times, because it's just like you're packed like sardines, just, and then you know, they get you out of the crowd and you're just tiptoeing your way forward trying to get to the starting line. It's so there's not like a ton of space to warm up. And I mean, I guess I should have expected that considering how many runners there were.
Yeah.
And you know, I think it's something that we now know if we ever do that, you know, the New York City Marathon again, we kind of know the layout, which would be good, because there were places we passed where we
before getting to the village.
Yeah, we could have easily warmed up. And, you know, we saw people running, but I was like anxious because I was like, okay, where these people are running, but like I have no idea where the orange corral is. I have no idea where, you know, whatever A, B, C, D, E are. Like I have no idea how it's set up. But knowing that for the future, I think will help, because it's not that far, and, you know, it probably alleviates some anxiety.
Yeah, because when I saw the people running, I was like, oh, okay, so we'll see our corral, and we'll probably be close enough that we could probably walk back here and get a jog in. But that wasn't the case. It was too much, and it just kept getting tighter. And I hit a point where I just said, okay, I guess I'm not gonna get a warm up in here. Couldn't even, you know, sit on the ground and do any sort of like of the, you know, stretches or stuff that I do to try to warm up. Anyway, not ideal, but it wasn't freezing, so I don't know how much that had any effect. Get out onto the bridge, waiting for the elites to start, which was that was a cool experience just to see that. Anytime you see the elite athletes doing their thing, you know, it's amazing to watch, right? These people are obviously elites in their field, and they just glide. Their mechanics are incredible. Seeing them run just, you know, gives me a lot of motivation, because it's like that's the top of the top. So they go. We're standing around kind of on the bridge for a little bit, waiting for our go. And then it's pretty much go time for us. I was walking up with my Orange Corral Wave 1A, I guess. I probably said that wrong.
Yeah,
and then Shawn was the wave behind me in B. But I was walking up the bridge, and I feel like a tap on my shoulder, and Shawn had like moved his way up.
Which I don't know.
To me.
Yeah, they were very close.
Because
so
we were pretty close.
I wasn't trying to move up. Next thing you know, I just saw Marcus, and I was like, oh, they must have just like meshed together. But yeah, that was cool. I wasn't expecting to start together. And we didn't really start together, but like we were at the starting line together, and we were pretty close to like the beginning, like the starting line, you know, which was really cool, because you have that view of the Verrazzano just like shut down. Usually it's full of cars. It's like, you know, the sun's out, helicopters flying over, and like it's just like I'll never, you know, you'll never experience that until, you know, you're just there and you can feel the energy.
Race starts, running up what is an incline that I think is about a mile long up the Verrazzano, and then kind of almost a mile back down. The incline is when I noticed that my heart rate was probably higher than it should have been. I was probably halfway up that incline and, you know, took a glance at my watch. Wasn't feeling bad or anything. Just took a glance at my watch to kind of check in and see where we were at. And my heart rate was at 160, which for me, that's when I start to enter threshold. So I was like, okay, that's not great. I was running, I think, like 6:35 to 6:40 pace. So I was like, okay, that should probably come down. I mean, I am on an incline, which doesn't feel like an incline at all, because you obviously have the excitement of the start of the race, and you're in a pack of runners, so you don't really feel the incline that much. So I told myself it'll probably come down on the decline, because that's kind of how it had been working in training, where I'd run kind of any sort of big hill that I ran, you know, on the decline. Not only would we kind of run faster, but the heart rate would come down. I crest that one mile mark, and then started on the downhill and kind of just let my legs carry me. I knew I wanted this whole time. I'm still going for the 2:45 time, so I knew that I wanted to try to catch a couple of those seconds on the downhill and kind of even out my pace. Ended up running mile 2 like 5:55, which in hindsight I probably should not have opened up my legs like that, but it didn't feel like I was working very hard, and my heart rate was coming back down just because I was on that decline.
Yeah. There are a few things that I did. I think the first mistake I made was I was on the bridge before we started, and I was like, oh man, sun's really on me. Opened the weather app.
Bro,
and
what?
checked the weather, saw it was 84% humidity, looked at the temperature, and like didn't, I just was I just wanted
This
to
man was
know.
obsessed with the weather.
So I was like, oh boy, that's hot. But then like it left my mind, and that was that. Second thing that was kind of unfortunate that I didn't really expect to happen was I was running. As soon as we started running, my phone was in my compression shorts, and it was falling out. Like it wasn't staying in my compression shorts, so it was just falling out. Now I didn't change anything. I wore these compression shorts that I've been wearing all of training, that I've worn and put my phone in multiple times, and for some reason it was like bouncing out, and I was on this bridge, so I was like, if this bounces out, like it's gonna like hit the ground and like roll back down the bridge, and then like what do I do then? So I'm over here like one hand running and the other hand holding my phone in my pocket, hoping to like that it'll just settle in the pocket. Doesn't settle in. So next thing you know, I got a bottle in my hand and then a phone in my other hand, and I have 6 gels in this left pocket. I'm moving all 6 gels into my right pocket because I'm like, okay, maybe my right pocket is the issue. So then I'm taking the things out. I got my 6 gels, moving them in my right pocket, putting my phone in my left pocket, still just bouncing everywhere. So I'm just like, screw this. Like I'm just holding my phone, and hopefully like when I get sweaty, it'll like start sticking, and like maybe then it'll make my compression shorts better. So for about 2 miles, so then we go up the Verrazzano. I feel amazing. Like besides my phone, and just maybe it was because I was distracted from that, I felt so good. I was hitting like a 6:20, 6:30 pace, which is fast, and I would not do that again. But like I didn't feel like I was hitting a 6:20, 6:30 pace. And then on the downhill, like I did the same thing as Marcus. I didn't really try to push. Like I was just kind of putting one foot in front of the other and just letting my body take me down. My heart rate coming up was around like probably 157, which is high, higher than I would like to be at mile 1 of a race. But on the downhill, it was coming down. So at that point, besides my phone, I was feeling good. I was like, oh, okay, like I got this. I can settle into a pace and carry myself, because this is the steepest incline of the race.
It's funny that you mentioned messing with your phone, because I didn't download my running playlist before, and I had no service on this bridge. So I pulled my phone out of my pocket and was consistently switching between songs on the playlist, just trying to get one of them to start playing so that I had something going in my ears, and it wasn't just listening to my breathing and my footsteps, but it was not working. So the whole entire bridge, I'm running. I'm also bottle in my left hand, phone in my in my right hand, coming down off the bridge, still have the phone in my right hand. And then I don't know why, but I thought to myself, what if you turned off cell phone or turned off Wi-Fi? I turned off Wi-Fi and my playlist started working. I don't know why that is, or maybe it just got service back after the starting village and like the whole bridge thing didn't have much service.
You turn off Wi-Fi?
Yeah,
that helps me sometimes too, and
yeah.
I don't know why.
I just flicked it off, and then my playlist started playing, and thank God, because then I could put my phone back into my little pouch thing on my leg and didn't have to carry it anymore. Mile 2 through 7, I kind of fell into a zone. Like I felt like I was gliding again, wasn't working terribly hard. Yeah, I felt good. I think around mile 6, I pulled up next to 2 guys from the Brooklyn Track Club and ran with them for a little bit. Was feeling good, stride after stride, legs felt strong, not tired. Wind wasn't, I wasn't like breathing crazy heavy. My heart rate had come down a little bit. I was still kind of right around 150, 152, so higher than where I would have wanted to be. But I knew that it was hot, so I knew that I was going to be working harder. Was trying to maintain taking in enough fluid. Each mile I had been taking a couple sips from the bottle, which had electrolytes in it. And starting mile 2, I took my first gel, which helped, and then kind of did a gel every 2 miles from there on until like had to pull out. But yeah, 2 through 7 felt good. I mean, I fell into a zone, and I had been asking myself like, all right, when are we gonna find a zone? Because in our previous like 10K marathon pace or our marathon pace runs, it would take me a mile or 2 to get into my zone and just then settle in almost, and the nerves would calm down, and like you'd be running again. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I settled into a zone pretty early after I got off the bridge. But then probably around like mile 4.5 or 5 or so, I would say, I started, realizing how hot I was because I took a goo. There's another issue is I made this concoction in my drink, in my bottle. I put like half of Morton's drink mix in it, and then a cyst tablet, which is just like electrolytes, and I made it the night before. And I was like, because I know it's gonna be hot, so like I need to replenish because I'm a heavy sweater, really heavy sweater.
I forgot about this.
Yeah, they tell you like if after your runs, if you have like a very thick coat of sweat on you, that's me. So
I forgot about the don't try anything new on.
Well, the weather just spooked me. So I made this concoction in my water bottle, and I was brilliant. I thought it was brilliant. So I quickly realized it had like congealed in my water bottle. So I was trying to squirt it into my mouth, and it was like just not coming out. So I was running now, opening my water bottle, drinking out of it like just like a regular water bottle. But also noticing my heart rate was like then at 165, which is like I don't get to 165 very often. I don't get to I rarely get to 170. So being at 165 at that mile, like I knew like I was, I can't maintain that for 26 miles. Like that's not how my heart works. And the only other times I hit that 160 range was in the heat. So I was like, oh shit, like the heat's really going to get to me. Like I'm going to try to get ahead of this and, drink a lot of water, do everything I can. So I was chugging the electrolyte. I took my Morton, and like nothing felt like it was working. And on top of it all, on the first or second, I like some of this is very vague because like it's hard to remember exact. So like first or second Gatorade or water station, I go and pick up a water like from somebody who has them in the cups, and I'm like so hot, and I read something where it's like make sure you're like every water station you're pouring water on yourself to bring down your core body temperature. So I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna do that from the rip. So I grab the water, I throw it on my head. It goes like directly into my ear, and my AirPods stops working, and it starts like ringing in my ear, and like totally just loud, like, and I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. So I take out my AirPod. I'm down to one AirPod. So that was the beginning around mile like 6-ish, I would say, of my race.
Yeah. Well, mile 8 comes, and I'm starting to notice that I'm working a lot harder than I normally should be. My pace hadn't really suffered at this point, I don't think. But I remember telling myself, we need to adjust off of 245 and dial this back. So I dialed back to like running 640s, I think 645s or something. And I was grasping at straws because I was coming, I don't know where this incline was, but it was somewhere in Brooklyn. Meanwhile, I don't remember any of Brooklyn, like anything. I only remember one like tunnel of people yelling extremely loud, but my memory is like gone. But on mile 8, I had like these black streaks like fly across my eyes. And I was like, oh, like the only ever time I've had black creep in on the side of my eyes is one time when I broke my elbow cap off and had to sit down after that. And 2, on like a really hot training day when I was at the end of like a VO2 max run. But I knew that the end was there, so that I didn't really, pay attention to the black creeping in. And the couple like black floater things like come across my eyes. And I'm like, yeah, it's happened before. Like, let's make sure at the next water station we throw some on our chest, on our head, and get some and take some in. So we did that. And at this time, it felt good. I then just told myself, let's get to half marathon and readjust. Let's slow this pace down to like 6:45 and get to the half marathon mark. So just keep running, and my quads start just like going fast. I have experienced this before, kind of like a nerves thing. I think I started to kind of internally panic. Like, I can't hold this pace. I might not be able to hold any pace. I'm going to pass out. So I'm just trying to keep throwing my legs one in front of the other, trying to get to the marathon point or the half marathon point, the halfway point. And I remember my legs just getting weak and like getting jello and starting to feel like jello. And I'm looking down and my heart rate's like 165. I'm like, oh my God, I can't get this under control. And my breathing is starting to like become erratic. So I audibly out loud told myself to take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath. And at this time, like, I don't even know where I am on the course, but it's got to be around mile 11 or 12. And one of my AirPods gets loose in my ear because I had thrown water on my head and like made it loose. And it flops out of my ear. And I don't even turn around. I'm such in dire straits, I don't even turn around to look at it or pick it up. I take out the other earphone and threw it into the crowd because I was so mad. I was like, you know what? I don't even deserve music. I'm just going to run in silence. And the crowds, props to the crowds. They were loud as shit. I did not expect how loud the crowd was. But yeah, so my AirPods are somewhere over in Brooklyn. I did find my AirPods after the race, and one AirPod is like a mile away from the other one. So someone must have put it in their ear and listen to something for a little bit. Yeah. Also saw a lot of you all on the course. There's a lot of you that I missed. Like I said, I barely have any memory in Brooklyn. It was like completely wiped from my mind because I was just, I don't know. I think my eyeballs probably turned and I was looking inside my body trying to figure out what was going wrong. But yeah, we get to mile 13 and I'm like, all right, this is halfway. You got another half marathon to run right now to finish out. And I just kept trying to push. I was like, all right, you got to go to the next water station. You can do it. I get to the next water station and like my legs are just like completely just gone. My heart rate is like 167. I pull off into the medical tent and I asked them for some just straight salt. So I got 2 salt packets, just poured them in my mouth, took on water. I have ice on my neck. My heart rate is not coming down. It's just beating in my ears. And then like 5 minutes later, there's an open seat next to me in the medical tent. I'm looking down and I hear, Marcus. And it's Shawn pulling into the same medical tent. And I'm like, oh my God, bro. Like, what are the odds that we end up in this same medical tent right next to each other? Like, absolutely beat to shit. Man, I'll never forget that. I remember just being so disappointed. And we were like, yeah, I guess this is fitting. You know, we did the exact same training plan, and this is where we are.
Yeah. I mean, I guess from my point of view, I settled, besides my rocky start, I settled into a pretty good zone from miles like, I don't know, I would say miles 7 to probably like 11 and a half. I was in a decent spot. And then like I was just like working that whole time to get my heart rate down. And like a few times I was able to bring it back down to the 150s. But it just kept rising, whenever there was another sort of incline, it was just kind of inevitable that it wasn't going to rise. So it got to the point where, I don't know, around mile 12, I was like trying to push, and then like I was just giving it everything I could to stay on my pace, and it just was dropping. Like my legs were not able to keep up. And then I started getting cold. I was like getting cold and like the goosebumps almost, which obviously is like one of the first signs of some heat exhaustion. So that was a little bit alarming, and then I got dizzy, and at that point I was like, look, I can try to push through, and I guarantee you I would have if it was closer, but I said I still have 13 miles left of this. Like, I don't think I would make it across that finish line if I was in this condition and it was only going to get worse. So then it got to a point around mile 13 where we were going up some sort of incline where it was like, I need the next medical tent. Like I need to stop. So I'm just looking up ahead, looking for a medical tent. I see one, and I was like, I was so mad. I was so mad at myself. I was like, God damn, like, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to be looking, like, get on my phone and look at everybody I know who's running, who's doing this thing and, like, hitting their goals. And then I go in, and I literally see Marty's, and at first I was like, what the? And then I was like, bro, what are you, like, what are you doing? And he was like, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and then I was just like, it's just like heat. And he was just like, there's something along those lines. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, dude, I can't. My heart rate is out of this world. Like, my resting heart rate after I was sitting was like so high. So then we just sat there, and we were just kind of like, it was just kind of one of those moments where you're just like, damn.
I was in disbelief.
Like,
I was so mad.
I can't believe we both ended up here after all of that. Ended up in the same exact medical tent. Ended up struggling in the same exact way. It was like, and then, at that moment, you feel very much like you failed because you had a goal in mind. And it seems like from the outside, everybody else is having the race of their lifetime. But then, you really look at it, and you're not the only one that kind of dealt with a lot of the issues with the heat, with the it's not an easy course, obviously. But at the time, it was very much like I was in my own head, like, God damn, like, you really screwed yourself. You screwed it up. You couldn't hold on, what did I do wrong? And then it just piles on top because you're just sitting there watching people pass, like watching people run their race, pass you, finish further than you did. It kind of eats you alive a little bit. But at the same time, there's not like it was the right thing to do to pull off.
Yeah. I mean, when it's all said and done, like, I guess, should I have adjusted my goal and run a slower start and kind of like waited till we got to mile 20 to see if I could push? Yeah, but that wasn't what I set off to do with this entire training plan, right? Like, I gave myself a goal that had been the goal for the whole entire 18 weeks. And if I was either going to do it and give it everything that I had and blow up in the process, or I was going to do it and do it. And it sucks, right? You put in all of that time, and all of those miles just to, in my case, get a did not finish. And yeah, I mean, you ultimately, if you're competitive in anything, like, underperforming is the worst thing that you can do, especially when there's a whole backlog of time and energy and sacrifices put into that event, right? So, I don't think there's anybody that could be harder on me than myself, because you were unable to perform at the level that you expected of yourself. So, it's just back to the drawing board and figure out what the next steps are. And do I think that I'll run a sub 2:45? Yes, I'm going to run a sub 2:45 marathon at some point. I just, maybe we need a different approach to race day. Maybe we need a plan with more mileage. Maybe we need a coach. Maybe we need, I don't know. There's a host of things that we can probably retool and do better the second time around, and come out with a different outcome. But I'm not going to go into my second marathon having done the same exact thing that I did the first time and expect a different result.
Yeah. It's hard to, like, I'm still kind of processing it all. And it's easy to be like, what if? So I'm trying not to do that. It's one of those things where I'll never know until I go do another one. And, you'll go in and, like, I fully believe and I'm 100% confident that I train to my hardest and best ability. Like, the 18 weeks was probably, like, the hardest I've ever trained for something in my life. Just miles upon miles upon miles, time gone. You sacrifice a lot of things to, like, go be able to train because, you want to train a certain way, or I wanted to train a certain way to where I felt confident going into the next week. And it just sucks because, like, you feel like you lost a lot, but then, after reflecting on it and talking about it with people, 2 other, like, runners and Marcus, it's like the main thing you took away from that race and that all of that is the 18-week training plan.
Mm-hmm.
Those miles are something that you'll have under your belt, and, like, those don't just go away because you didn't hit your goal. Like, those will always, before this training plan, I was maxing out at 40 miles a week. Now, after this training plan, I'm comfortable doing, like, 60 miles a week. Those are things that I can keep building on and figuring out how to retool and do it right the next time. And, could I go run a sub 3-hour marathon right now? Like, I believe I could. Maybe not right now, but, like, with my legs at their current state. But, if some conditions or anything were a little bit better, maybe. And I think I could, but, everybody else can have their opinions on that. Just one of those things where it just didn't work out, and that's what it is.
Yep. It's just back to the drawing board, figure it out. Yeah. It's not the end of, my running career. I'm not just going to stop, right? You just retool, refocus, and get back on the horse. I mean, I had an 8-mile run this morning. Felt pretty good. And that's that. You just got to pick up the pieces where they are and put them together somehow and improve upon them, and then ultimately go out and live to race another day. So that's the plan. Hopefully this was able to answer any questions regarding, like, if we were injured or anything. Yeah, luckily, both of us remain uninjured, and, outside of soreness, I'm ready to go, ready to keep hammering away.
I surprisingly feel, like, pretty good. My feet hurt, but that's just because of the shoes. But I feel good, and then I think a lot of people have been asking, what's next, and we're not sure. Like, I think, we both would want to do, like, a training plan, like another training block.
Yeah.
Or explore. I don't know. It's one of those things. Like I signed up for a 5K, like in December, like with the New York Roadrunners, that I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna race it. But like I'm not gonna go and dedicate a whole training block to it. There's gonna be a big race in the future, I'm sure, that we'll start training for. But I don't know yet.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know yet.
Nope. Just got to take it day by day. Thanks for listening. If you liked it, or if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to leave them wherever you can. I don't know what platform you're listening on. We'll be back 2 weeks. I think every 2 weeks is a good pace for releasing new episodes. And, enjoy the week. Enjoy the Tuesday. See you soon.